So we got it angled perfect to you look like $1 million. So
After taxes?
definitely after taxes.
Delbert Tedrick, born in 1930. My dad was a farmer, a factory worker. My mother was a homemaker. You never had enough money, but you always had plenty of food. Plain, down-to-earth people is how you describe my family. High school, I was in a high school had 4 classes. The 4 classes made up 120 students. I just moved from the city where I was in a freshman class and I had 132 in a class, and I moved to Stillman Valley. So it was kind of intimate. You got to know everybody. You commingled with everyone, whether you were a freshman or a senior. I thought it was, like Harry Truman said, it was a police action, and at the time it looked like it would truly be a police action. But it turned out it was a real war, but it was a forgotten war. Newspapers, radio, and rumor. The things for fact that weren't really true came out, and you didn't know which way to go, but it made me want to be a Marine. And I just decided it was time to do my duty to my country, I guess, and I joined the Marine Corps on my 20th birthday. It was a real mixed platoon because we had fellows from the west, from St. Louis and Missouri, and from the Southland, and then from the north we had fellows from Maine. And I suddenly discovered that we're all different, but we're all the same. The recruiting sergeants all treated you nice until you got on a train for Paris Island. And then they started bearing down, putting pressure on you to find out how much you could really take. It was Sergeant Ski, our original drill sergeant, the one that we probably remembered the most. They took him, and about 3/4 of the way through boot camp, took him away from us and sent him to Pensacola, Florida to teach Navy flyers how to march. So he was good at that. And I had a drill sergeant that couldn't count cadence, couldn't teach. I don't know how he got to be a sergeant there, because he didn't know how to teach anything. He just kind of went with the flow. I'd done everything. I almost didn't pass my swimming test. And if you didn't pass the swimming test, you couldn't go overseas. So I passed it. I made it. I went to Korea in 1953. I can remember the Marine detachment went aboard the ship, and then the next day before they kept saying we're leaving tomorrow morning at some oddball hour. I don't know what it was. My first point, they sent me to Camp Pendleton for staging regiment, and then finally got a ship to put us on to take us across. We got there and got off the ship, and they took me to Ascom City, which was originally a Japanese industrial site. From Ascom City, I went to White Fort Hill. My company was put there as a machine gun company. Settling in, you just kind of tried to figure out where you were at and what you were doing, make sure everything was where you could get to it. Japanese hospital was used for our showers. We lived in squad tents, all of us together. Ascom City was the replacement depot for the Korean Marine Corps. There wasn't too much to see because there wasn't too much there by the time we got there. The North Koreans and the Chinese had pretty well run everything down. Buildings in disarray, and watching. Our tractors were in Incheon, and we were at Ascom City, so every day we had to take truck transport for the 17 miles between the two places. And going through Checkpoint Charlie. We call it Checkpoint Charlie. We don't know what the Army called it. But we had the opportunity of kind of catching your breath when you were traveling from one position to another, and you got to see a lot of the country and a lot of the people, and what they were trying to do to overcome the troubles that were happening in our country.
How did you stay in contact with your family?
Good old U.S. mail. We got free postage. We didn't have to pay postage if we mailed it from Korea. So just the mail. That was basically it. Packages were slow coming, but letters were 10 days. You could get a letter that was mailed it took about 10 days to get to Korea. I spent most of my time right there, and then they moved us back to Ascom City, and we started making new fortifications on the Imjin River. Seemed like we drove forever on the Imjin River to get to our new place. And that's when the Chinese and Hong Kong situation came up. So they took us short-timers. I was a short-timer by that time, and left 7 of us in charge of a 20-acre campsite surrounded by barbed wire. Don't know if that was to keep us in or to keep the other people out, but that's the way it came. Had my men make a path 20 feet wide all the way around us. I don't want it clear. So we cut down a persimmon tree, cut half of a persimmon tree down, and a little Japanese farmer came up and said, "No, no, 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 no." He was mad because we had cut the persimmon tree down, which is part of his sustenance for food. And he saw what had happened, and he's got a side that we'd seen him sharpen it, and he could actually shave if he'd never he would have gotten your beard off with that scythe. So he's coming after me with with his scythe, and he was mad. So we had a washy boy who was the interpreter for our platoon. And I said, "What's his problem?" He says, "He's all ticked off because you cut down his persimmon tree." I said, so I gave him a package of cigarettes and a Hershey bar. And good GI, good GI. We kept on, and we rigged up a shower there at our position, so we'll all gather around the shower, and this Korean is there, and other friends come by, and he's laughing and joking with us and talking, and the more he talks, the more he missed his persimmon tree, so he's back after me again. Every time another farmer came up to the wash station, he'd tell them the story, and he'd come back after me. So I said, I wonder if I should really go to bed tonight if that Korean's going to be in our position. We finally got him satisfied, and he went away.
What was your job in the Marine Corps?
Amphibian tractor commander, 18-ton vehicle that could drive a Jeep onto or carry a platoon of men, go on land or water, go about 8 miles an hour on water and upwards of 28 miles on land. I ended up being a platoon sergeant in Korea, and at one time I signed for over $1 million worth of equipment because we didn't have an officer. We had room to move around. You couldn't quite stand up after they put the covers. We had covers on them to keep the water out, which they didn't. Move around, steel deck, gun platform, 230 caliber machine guns, twin Cadillac engine drive. They were noisy. That's why I can't hear quite as good. One of the reasons. I was on White 4 for 6 weeks just before the armistice was signed. I had an artillery unit and a quad 50 machine gun. That's first night up there, quad 50 got a night firing position. I was on a guard post because everybody stood guard. When you get 450 caliber machine guns firing in synchronization, it makes a lot of noise and makes you wonder, what am I doing here? We took over from an Army Ranger unit, and they left their equipment, and we kind of inherited. We had a had a fire mission, and it was given to White Ford to instigate that on my position. So we were going through the firing procedure, doing what we were directed to do, and the guys on the two sides of us called up on the sound phone, says, "What are you guys shooting over there?" 30 ball. Well, it sure is funny. You're getting a funny sound when you're firing, every time you fire. Well, the barrel on the machine gun was worn so much that as the bullets left, they tumbled. And so that's why we weren't finishing our fire mission the way it was supposed to.
And then the truce negotiations that had dragged on through 2 years of communist stalling bore fruit. The enemy finally agreed to a ceasefire. July 27, 1953, General Mark Clark signed for the United Nations.
We have stopped the shooting. That means much to the fighting men and their families, and it will allow some of the grievous wounds of Korea to heal. Therefore, I am thankful. It is, however, only a step toward what must yet be done. The task now is to put the ceasefire agreement into full effect as quickly as we can and get down to working out an enduring settlement of the Korean problem. I cannot find it in me to exult in this hour. Rather, it is a time for prayer that we may succeed in our difficult endeavor to turn this armistice to the advantage of mankind.
When the armistice was signed, when you were in Korea, how did you guys feel in that moment when you found out?
Well, basically we felt things are going to be a little bit easier. The doctors aren't going to have to work as hard. We finally, maybe we've accomplished something whether we know it or not. So we weren't sure what was going to happen because there's been rumors of armistice, ceasefires, home by Christmas. It was supposed to be a 90-day war. The Civil War was supposed to be a 90-day war too, and it lasted for 4 years. This Korean War only lasted for 3. After the ceasefire, it was about the same. Didn't change all that much, except you didn't hear the alarms going off. The hospitals were, the MASH units, as they so-called, were slowing down. They didn't have anything to do. Kind of quiet, but you're still running scared, not knowing exactly what's really going to happen here.
What was your worst memory for being over there?
The 2 guys that got stuck in the mud. The tidal waves, well, Incheon Harbor dropped 120 feet in 30 seconds. Fastest tides around. And these 2 soldiers, not in my unit. I'd rather not. And they were chasing this Korean across the mud flats, and he had rubbers that you put on over your shoes. That's what they wore for shoes over there. These 2 soldiers were chasing him across the mud flats. He'd stolen something, or he was a known thief or something. And they went out after him. Everybody said, let him go, let him go. They got out there and they had their combat boots on. and they got stuck in the mud. And they couldn't get out. So they called a helicopter to come in with a sling to try to pull them out. By the time he got there, they were in almost to their waist, like a quicksand. They tried to pull them out, and they couldn't. They said, there's no way we can get anything in here. The more we dig, the deeper you go. So they sent a corpsman out with morphine. Gave him morphine. The one guy looked back and says, ain't this a hell of a way to die? And they drowned when the tide came in.
What was your last day in Korea like?
Oh, I was short-timer. I didn't have to do anything. Wait to get my sea bag and get on a truck and go to Incheon, get on board a ship and head for home, California. Well, it didn't take us as long to come back as it did to go over. It took us 21 or 22 days to go over, and I think it only took us 16 to come back. They knew we were anxious to go. Hearing the music that they were playing on board the ship, they had radio going all the time. It was all new to us.
Do you agree with our actions in Korea?
We were fighting a backwoods war with modern standards. I think they've done a pretty good job, all things being considered, but they should have just done more of it. There was probably changes, but I wasn't aware of them. I was having too much fun being me. You lose your inhibitions when you go through something like the military. You do things differently, or do it because you want to, or I don't have to obey the rules for a while. I'm immune to everything. Not that I'm aware of. It probably did. When you go out and you're intentionally trying to inflict bodily harm against your fellow man, it's got to change you somehow. But you adjust, adapt, ignore the changes. Again, sigh of relief. Thanks to Harry Truman. Just laid back and take it easy. A sigh of relief. That's the best way I can describe it.
What is the most important lesson we can learn from the Korean War?
Don't get in a piss and fight with a skunk. No matter if you win or lose, you're still the losers.
This year, I had the privilege of working on Delbert's documentary. I chose Delbert because he had a very heart-wrenching story and he seemed like a very kind person. Throughout the entire year, I worked very hard on his documentary and I looked forward to meeting him. I first met him at the pasta dinner that we held in February, and I scheduled a time to go to his house to receive more pictures to put into my documentary. Going into his house with his wife, I knew that they were very kind people and I was so excited to be with them and to create his story. While I was at his house, I learned of many stories that he didn't share during his interview. This time was very important for me because it let me build a relationship with him and let me see the war through his eyes. After leaving his house, I was very eager to begin working on the rest of my documentary because I knew that I could make it a great story. Throughout this journey of creating this documentary, I have honestly learned so much more than any history class could ever teach me. Watching Delbert's face every single day as I work on his documentary has been so rewarding. I hope that our relationship continues to grow even after this class is over because he has so much that he could tell me and I could learn so much from him. Working on this documentary has been extremely challenging, but I push through it every single day because Delbert deserves something like this in order for him and his family to remember his story forever because it is such an amazing story and I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to work on it. I have a new love and appreciation for veterans and everything that they do for us, and especially Delbert because I've built such a close relationship with him. I just personally wanted to say thank you again to Delbert for sharing your inspiring story and letting me create this documentary to carry on your memories.
Yeah, the funny things is what you remember. We had a guy by the name of Duffy in our outfit, great big, bigger than you. But he had when he took a shower, he had to have someone help him dry because he had body hair all over his body. And he never could get his back dry except when he got with the Marine Corps. And he had about 3 or 4 guys that would be willing to help dry him down. And I remember Duffy, we were in Incheon on Liberty. The Liberty truck went every night for the guys that wanted to go to Incheon, pay 50 cents for beer that they could get for 10 cents in the PX. But Duffy got into one of these places that had more than beer for participation. And he overindulged. And we're waiting for the Liberty truck to take us back to Ascom City. And Duffy started to get up off the bus. The truck was coming, we could hear it. And he got up from the curb of the street. And as he got up, he went backwards. He turned around trying to catch himself. And he stumbled backwards all the way across this brick roadway and into a bar made out of bamboo and paper. And he tore the front end off of it, went on back in, got up against the bar and tipped the bar over, and then he fell down on top of it. And we couldn't imagine how bad he was hurt, and we went over, he says, "What happened? Did I fall down?"